Good evening, everyone. Welcome. If we could all please stand. We'll be led in prayer by Alderman Sam Browning.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all of our deliberations. Give us the strength and wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark all of our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of our community.
Amen. Amen.
Alderman DeLucia, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of August 5th and 19th, 2019. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderman DeLucia, is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. The vote is 6-0.
Public hearing number 1, an ordinance regarding additional fiscal year 2018-2019 appropriations for the general fund and the city consolidation district.
Thank you. I declare this public hearing open, and at this time I would invite people here to speak in favor of this ordinance. I ask you to please state your name and address for the public record. You will each have 3 minutes. The first person signed up is Linda Thoreau. Am I saying that right?
Linda Theodoru, 37 Taftville-Ockham Road, Norwich, Connecticut.
My apologies.
Even in this day and age, some people still value the truth. I have heard 2 statements that mischaracterize what has actually happened here. First, how can you say there were higher than anticipated expenses when you were told what the expenses were going to be and yet decided to not provide the funding for them? Second, underfunding is not the same as increased efficiencies. It is just poor financial management and makes it difficult for these departments to provide the services which the residents of Norwich need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom Matthews? Is Mr. Tom Matthews here? Again, Mr. Tom Matthews. Okay. Those are the only 2 people who signed up ahead of time. If anyone else would like to address the council in favor of this ordinance, please step forward. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone else like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Seeing no one else, is there anyone here in opposition to this ordinance? Yes, sir.
Good evening. David Greb, 47 Prospect Street. I oppose this proposal. The Republicans seem to forget the historic event in Norwich politics when voters registered their opposition to the long-standing Democrat majority supersized budget back then. Outgoing pro tem de Saulnier's advice to the fresh Republican majority was to keep all the progressive Democrat efforts. Could the departure of Council Member Philbrick be the last straw for the shrinking Republicans who still hold the Democrat practice of this supplemental budget borrowing for the annual budget? Missing is a resolution for City Manager Solomon to prepare a department priority list for a necessary reduction in forces when the tax revenues shrink, as the comptroller mentioned last month. The residential properties vacated by taxpayers who joined the exodus to Florida, Texas, and other states is the footnote for the bulletin report that came out last week, where the 2nd Congressional District has the highest mill rates in Norwich. And only approximately half of Norwich is next door Preston. Where is the Plan D for dealing with shrinking tax revenues? Do the occupants in all recent tax-exempt housing equal the vacated residential properties in Norwich now? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here in opposition to this ordinance? Is there anyone else here in opposition to this ordinance? Last time, is there anyone else here in opposition to the ordinance? Seeing no one else, I declare the public hearing closed, and thank you all for your comments.
An ordinance regarding an additional fiscal year 2018-2019 appropriations for the general fund and the city consolidation district.
I entertain a motion, please, to put the item on the floor and waive the full text and reading as well, please. Yes, Alderwoman Stacey Gould, is there a second? Bring it forward. Alderwoman Philbrick, is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
Every year, the council works hard to put together a comprehensive budget that will address the needs of each city department and that takes into consideration what our taxpayers can afford. Our efforts, I believe, are making Norwich more attractive to homeowners and businesses. Growing the grand list and keeping taxes stable must be our main focus. I appreciate the efforts of the departments that were able to efficiently service the city and return almost $1.2 million to the general fund, which will be used to offset the other departments' deficits. I want to remind department leaders that they must be held accountable for budget overruns. And while I realize that there are certain events at which we have no control, our department's heads must remember that you are using taxpayer money when making decisions about how to appropriate each and every dollar.
Thank you. Is there further comment, discussion? Alderman DeLucia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do believe that the intent and our responsibility is to put forward a budget that balances both what the taxpayers can bear and also what our citizens and our departments need to operate. I don't believe, however, that this budget did anything to make Norwich more attractive to anybody who might be thinking about coming here, simply because of the fact that it looks like, I'm just going to say it looks like sometimes we don't know what we're doing. It looks like sometimes that the people sitting up here think they're smarter than the people who run our departments and have their trend data and justify their budget requests against that trend data when we have a school system that justifies what its expenses are going to be, and then when they're told that they have to do with $4.5 million less, I don't see where that makes the city of Norwich any more attractive. And I'm quite frankly getting tired of having the departments that, I don't even want to use the word overspend, that exceed their allocation right up to the amount that they asked for initially, be admonished for the fact that they stayed right on their trend data. So it is not an issue of trying to make the city more attractive by holding down spending. What it is, it's ignoring what the data is telling us It's ignoring what this council set as its priorities 2 months after it was sworn in, and in the name of cutting the mill rate. When, in fact, what we have not done by those first two things, what we have not done is delivered an honest budget. What we have not done is said that we understand what the expenses are, and here's what we're going to do to meet them. What we've said is we are going to dig our heels in and give you less than you've asked for, even though you've justified it 7 ways from Sunday, and then we are going to admonish you, and it's not even admonishment. We're going to chastise you, and I keep saying the word we because I don't want to single anybody out, but however, the fact is that the comments that have been made about the budget issues this year have been reprehensible. And now here we are, just as I said last time, right where we knew we were going to be when we were building this budget, and the departments who went over are the bad guys. And all that does is divvy us up and split us up and drive wedges and point fingers and does nothing productive. And that does not make this city any more attractive to anyone. We said, or I should say, we set priorities. We did not follow those priorities. We said that we were going to take an honest look at what expenses truly were, and then when we didn't see what we wanted to see, we ignored the data, and this council voted irresponsibly, and now it's time to pay up. And everybody's pointing fingers. And I've had enough of it. Let's call it what it is. It's hoping against hope that a miracle will happen when we intentionally underfund against what the data tells us. Let's just be honest and say we know what things are going to cost. Let's plan for it. Let's budget for it. And then let's move the city forward. It does not make this city any more attractive to anyone to look at what the undeserved reputation of the school system is because of some of the things that have been said from this dais and in the paper and in public. It doesn't make this city any more attractive when the school system's reputation is, and the Board of Ed's reputation and the reputation of the administrators and the leadership in central office and right down to the teachers is being tarnished for political purposes, nothing more, okay? And it doesn't do us any favors when people who look at the city of Norwich and think about moving here and say, well, they underfund their school system by millions of dollars every single year. Well, guess what? They're not going to want to move here. So none of those things made the city any more attractive. All it did was make us look like we don't know what we're doing. And frankly, that's an embarrassment. That's an embarrassment to me. And the fact that we're carrying over debt into next year, and that the CCD is already starting off in red ink next fiscal year, I'm sorry. That's unacceptable. We can't keep doing the same thing and then blaming others for the reason why things are messed up. This system, this process needs to change. And for one, I've been sitting here, my colleagues have been sitting here saying these are the changes that need to happen, and we are ignored. All of that needs to change. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Is there further comment? Yes, Alderman Burnham.
Just to put a finer point on it, so we asked, and we were responded to by the comptroller about what the mill rate increase will be in order to make up for the deficit. The mill rate increase, if everything stays as is right now, is projected to be 0.76 on the CCD. That comes out to $74 additional for the CCD. who already bears the disproportionate share of the tax burden. So the mandate for lower taxes, it's just not coming to fruition. I'm going to vote for this because we have to pay our bills, but I agree that this is not the way to go about budgeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Yes, Alderman Browning.
I agree with my colleague to my left that essentially we're in a situation where we have to vote for this, and that's why I'm voting for it. And I would point out that both the police department and the Norwich City Fire Department were very specific in what they needed for replacement and overtime costs. These were underfunded, and at least one of these departments will get blamed for, quote, going over budget when this was known. And people say, well, why are the overtime costs so high? Well, you have minimum staffing levels, and also we don't want to hire more police officers and firefighters. I mean, that's a flip side of it. And arguably, some of these issues would be resolved in contracts, but that's not the way they're being resolved. Instead, we kind of have this attempt to reduce costs by instead cranking up the costs on the CCD. And it's regrettable, and I don't like it, but here we are, and the alternative of voting against it gets the citizens of Norwich even less.
All set, Alderman Browning?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just didn't want to deny you any further. Is there any further comment? I'll be very brief. It clearly is a philosophical difference. And in one case, people rely on the department heads and would almost give them a blank check. Some of us won't do that, because taxpayers need to have a voice here as well. And for the last 4 years, they've had a stronger voice here. And you're seeing the philosophies between, in this case, two elected groups of people. If it's so difficult for people to live within their budgets, then why did all the other departments return funds to us this year? Almost $1.2 million. They spent less than which they were allocated. Now, the departments are different. Their missions are different. Police and fire are very different. Their risks are much higher, and their needs, when they're called, have to be responded to. But to simply throw your hands up and say, give them whatever they want, that's not governing. You have to ask them to live within their budgets. And that's what we've done. The general fund 4 years ago was higher than it is tonight. That's from the comptroller's office as well. Now, that will be adjusted after this action tonight by that ordinance. But it's actually almost 2/3 of a mil lower than it was 4 years ago for the 15-16 year. People are trying to hold spending in check here, and that's the only honest way to talk about savings. You have to reduce spending. And it's a battle, and it's not pleasant. So tonight, we'll adjust the budget that was previously adopted just a short time ago. It's less than a 1% error rate, if you want to call it that, over the entire budget of over $138 million. That's pretty close. Perfect world, you wouldn't have to deal with this, but we do, and we will. But I don't think we should forget the taxpayers. Those of us who stand up or sit up here and represent them will continue to do that. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Before you do, I'd just like to make
Yes.
one observation. In the ordinance, there's reference to the fact that the general fund and the CCD have adequate levels of unrestricted funds. That's qualified by the next line, the next whereas, that the CCD shall have a deficit of approximately $220,000. In reading this, it's slightly ambiguous as to whether or not it's been certified that there were adequate funds or sufficient funds to pay a portion of the debt, with $220,000 approximately to be in next year's budget. I think that it meets the requirements of our charter with respect to that information being in it, but I wanted to be clear before you voted that that's what's in there and that's the purpose of it.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Burnham?
Yes.
Alderman Browning?
Yes.
Alderman DeLucia?
Yes.
Alderwoman Fulbrook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
6-0.
Motion passes 6-0.
Petitions and communication. Number 1, letter of resignation from Kevin Saitani from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Motion, please, to bring this forward. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Second, please. Thank you. Alderwoman Burnham, is there discussion? Seeing none. Just for the record, I'd like to give our thanks to him for his service on the Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor of accepting? It's unanimous, 6-0.
Number 2, letter from Chairman of the Norwich Golf Course Authority stating Angelo Yates is removed from the board per Chapter 18, Section 12 of the Charter.
Motion, please, bring it forward for communications. Alderwoman Philbrick, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Yes.
Perhaps we should explain to the listeners what that particular section means.
It's a reference when someone misses 3 consecutive meetings, and then we are notified by the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor? It's unanimous, 6-0.
Number 3, City Manager's Fire Apparatus Study.
Motion, please, put this before us to accept it. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderwoman Philbrick. And the motion is to refer to the Public Safety Committee for the record. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The matter is referred. The vote is 6-0.
City Manager's Report.
Good evening.
Acting City Managers.
Acting City Manager Josh Pothier reading this on City Manager John Salamone's behalf. The mayor, council members Gould and Nash and I, along with local dignitaries, met with Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz and took a walking tour of downtown. Several stops were made at new businesses so she could see the economic climate of the downtown. We also visited Atlantic Linen Services in the business park, who received a state low-interest loan for the acquisition of machinery and equipment and a $100,000 grant and aid for employee training to add 10 new positions and retain 110 others. Informational parking discussions were held on Tuesday, August 20th in council chambers. The 2 workshop sessions had approximately 18 attendees, including city officials, downtown business representatives, and residents to discuss the current and future parking needs in the city and trends around the country. 6 qualification proposals for a modern roundabout for Franklin Square were opened on August 27th. This is the first step in enhancing and updating the intersection to create a 2-way traffic pattern from Franklin Square to Main Street. My office has received notification from the State of Connecticut Department of Revenue Services of the 2019 approved Neighborhood Assistance Act programs. The 15 Norwich applications with requests that totaled $1,037,281 have been notified via email by my assistant, Jackie Barbarossa. Businesses requesting a tax credit under the Neighborhood Assistance Act must complete a separate form, NAA-02, for each program it wishes to sponsor on or after September 15th, 2019, but no later than October 1st, 2019. A list of all of the approved programs is available on the DRS website. Numerous events will be taking place in Norwich in the next 2 weeks. Discover Your Hardest will be held first Friday, September 6th. The 44th Annual Greek Food Festival will be held at Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church from September 5th to 8th. The 28th Annual Taste of Italy will be held on Saturday, September 7th at Brown Park. The 16th Annual Norwich Family Day takes place on Sunday, September 15th at Mohegan Park, along with the Harry-O Fun Run and Cup of Nations soccer event, which will also take place that same weekend. Celebrate Cultural Diversity will be held for the 7th year on Monday, September 16th at Brown Park. please visit any or all of these upcoming events. The fire apparatus study needs analysis and replacement schedule that was requested per the council in February 2019 has been handed out. Thanks to all the fire chiefs and comptroller for their assistance with the report.
Thank you. Just for the record, everyone, John Solomon's not here. He was on a vacation last week. He kind of got trapped because of the hurricane. In fact, his entire trip was diverted to other safer waters, we'll put it that way. And we hope to have him back in state sometime late tomorrow. And that is that. Any questions of our acting city manager? Yes, Alderman Brown.
Two questions. The first is, I've already previewed it. What's the status of 18 Falls Avenue? I know that this is a question which both the legal counsel and you would need to bring us up to speed on.
After the council adopted the resolution at the last meeting, the city manager signed the contract to have a survey done of the property with CMA Engineering. They'd indicated that they'd estimated it would be 2 to 3 weeks before they could get started. So that would have gone out probably around the 22nd of August. So I think they should get started shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
A second question, dealing with the first paragraph. When the lieutenant governor came to town, none of the Democrats were notified of this trip. I'm curious why. I'm sure at least I or Alderman DeLucia would have been available since it was the summertime to go along.
She called the office, and it was actually requested by Senator Austin, our Democratic senator. She set it up. I did not.
Did she provide a list of the names of the alder people who were invited?
No, I did not give her a list of people invited because I didn't give invitations. People showed up. And if that Democrat had come, they would have been most welcome.
I did not receive any invitation.
But invitations didn't go out. I mean, it was lieutenant's request to come in. It came in about 5 days before she arrived, and it was set up with Senator Austin.
I would have appreciated at least a chance, or one of my colleagues would have appreciated the chance to go along.
And again, we would have welcomed you there as well. I should note that Representative Kevin Ryan joined us as well, partway through the tour.
I didn't hear about it.
Perhaps more communication with all of our Senate and House members would prove valuable to all of us. But I will pass on your request. Should a call come from her office again, I will make sure that that goes forward.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Yes, Alderman Filbert?
I also am a little perturbed why I was not included in this. I am still a sitting member of the City Council, and yet I find myself more and more often not being aware of what is going on in this city. Where did the $400,000 roundabout for Franklin Street come from? Why was I not informed of this? Why was I not privileged to this information? And more importantly, why the hell do we need a roundabout on Franklin Street? So I commiserate with the Democrats because I'm a Republican and I'm supposed to be on this, but I didn't get an invitation. And I will bring up another thing that I was not going to bring up, but I will bring up. There was another event that was held recently that was a fundraiser, a political fundraiser where quite a few dignitaries were invited and attended. And when I asked after the fact why, it's going to be an emotional evening for me, so I'll just prepare you in advance. When I asked why I wasn't advised of the function, I was told, well, we know you don't have any money, so you couldn't come. You don't know how much money I have, and don't be making decisions for me. I am perfectly capable of making them myself. And this is not the first time this has happened. I didn't realize that I had to provide a financial statement in order to sit on this council. So as I say, I commiserate with the Democrats. It's inexcusable. If there is something going on, an email or some sort of communication should be sent to every single member of the council. Whether you like that person, whether you don't like that person, whether they're a Democrat, I would have liked nothing better than to had 2 minutes to talk to Susan Weissowitz. So I would appreciate, and I have said this before, that the information is given to everybody, regardless of what it is, and then that individual can make their own decision whether they can afford to attend a fundraiser, whether they want to take a walking tour, or whatever. But we need to be fair and we need to be transparent. And you shouldn't have, I'm not saying it's to anyone in particular, the person that's responsible knows, but it doesn't bode well, and it wouldn't bode well with the voters to know that people were being excluded for whatever reason. Because we represent everybody. They represent their constituents, and we represent ours. So just in the future, be aware of the fact that if things pertain to the council, then they should be disseminated to the entire council for them to make their decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The grant for the roundabout was an application put together, I believe, with our former Public Works Director, Mr. Ryan Thompson, and the assistance of our planning department. I hope I have that correct. The fact that it was awarded was in fact published in local newspapers months ago, and that's the origin of the grant for the roundabout. The purpose is to improve downtown flow patterns for traffic, just like when they made Franklin Street 2 ways. It's part of that new design that they were working on that before Mr. Ryan Thompson left.
Well, hardly anybody reads the bulletin, so don't use that for This is the city of Norwich and the city council. If you have information to give to the council, please do not do it via the bulletin or the day.
Is there further questions of the acting city manager? Thank you, Josh.
Citizen comment on resolutions.
We have 5 resolutions tonight. Citizen comment is open. If you'd like to discuss any of them, the microphone is yours. Yes, sir. Mr. Kraft.
Again, good evening, David Crabtree, 47 Prospect Street. I'll borrow a term that came from the podium tonight, transparency, and I'm talking about my opposition to Resolution 1. That seems to be a mishmash of language that only the council is aware of, and it's kind of hard to discuss something that's not explained. That's why I say transparency is absent. So I'll bring in what I learned last week from a talk radio host that I was channel surfing on the radio, and I didn't catch the name of the individual who spoke with authority about this matter, as far as I can see. The FBI, it seems, has the ability to enter anybody's house, regardless of whether it's alarmed or not, without the knowledge of the occupant, to inspect and possibly collect information about the occupant. From the discussion on talk radio, this resolution appears to bring the Norwich Police Department on board with the FBI to carry out what the FBI has been doing for a number of years. Some people don't like this term, but the Nazi Stasi didn't bother with sneaking into somebody's house. They just broke the door down and came in and searched it at will. So if the council is in favor of Norwich Police Department picking up on the FBI tactics of searching people's property, I'd like to hear what this resolution actually encompasses. After all, the Bill of Rights is up for grabs, it seems, and is going to disappear if this comes about like the talk radio host was getting from his interview. The FBI trained to open doors, and now the Norwich Police Department's going to learn the tactics and be trained over the internet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak under citizen comment on the resolutions? Please.
Marvin Ceruto, 100 Star Street, Norwich, Connecticut, United States of America. On Resolution 1, I just would hope you'd discuss it. It looks as though you'll be able to get data from cell phone usage. Right now, this is just casual observation, but I'm on the road a lot. We got a tremendous amount of people on cell phones. And we got a tremendous amount of people getting into accidents on cell phones. And a lot of times, they're not brought to justice. And I just watched tonight a young child on national television just nearly missed by a pickup truck flying down the road right by a school bus. I can't be certain of this, but I would be willing to bet that driver was on a cell phone or using a device because the school bus was just blatantly ignored. And that's happening right here in Norwich. See it all the time. And so if that's what this is for, this is a good thing. The cell phones need to go in the glove box. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak under citizen comment? Anyone else like to speak under citizen comment? Anyone else like to speak under citizen comment? Seeing no one else, I declare it closed, and thank you all.
Resolution 1, relative to the council satisfactorily reviewing the JAG grant and process.
Motion, please, to bring this forward. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderman DeLucia, is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
I will do the best job that I can to explain what this grant will be used for. This is not about going and breaking into anybody's house, whether they have an alarm or they don't have an alarm. This is about being able to recover from someone else's cell phone, computer, or tablet evidence that may link them and others to crimes that are being committed. This is not any kind of Nazi tactic, and I even regret using that term. So to suggest that this is some kind of inappropriate intrusion is offensive. Because unfortunately, a lot of crimes are committed and other people know about it. They discuss it on their phones, on their computers. There may be evidence because somebody's taken a picture of the items that they've stolen out of someone else's house. This is another tool in the toolbox for the Norwich Police Department. and I'm sure that they will use it effectively and properly. They will be training their police officers to use this, but this is not about illegally entering anyone's home or illegally searching anyone or illegally taking anyone's property. So I hope that belies any fears of anybody here or listening that, you know, we're using any kind of illegal tactics to gain access to information that may help solve a crime or bring other people to justice who are co-conspirators in a crime.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderman DeLucia?
It is also my understanding that, that the grant funds the capability of recovering this information. It does not replace the need for a warrant signed by a judge in order to collect this information. So, again, this is not the erosion of anybody's constitutional rights or an infringement, unreasonable infringement on anybody's privacy. Again, this is the ability to collect evidence in a lawful way, the way that the police officers and law enforcement officials have done over time. This is just, for lack of a better term, bringing us into the 21st century to deal with the technology that the criminals have at their disposal. And again, still not, still means or still requires a warrant signed by a judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Browning.
Well, we normally think of homicides in the city of Norwich. We're probably running about 2 a year. What we are having a glut with is manslaughter-related cases from people dealing fentanyl to people who then overdose. And one of the ways that the cases are evaluated in terms of collecting evidence is the person who's deceased, they then proceed to try to get into their cell phone and their email, and this is legal at the present moment. Obviously, there may be a court decision somewhere down the line about whether that's admissible in a court proceedings against a third person, namely the dealer, but the Norwich Police Department has its hands full with investigating such matters, and since the victim is no longer around to tell them who they bought from or who the other witnesses would be, a tool like this would be very valuable. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Burnham.
Just in the name of continuous quality improvement, I think this is something that Alderwoman Philbrick mentions a lot here. It says the JAG application was posted on the Norwich Police Department website. It would be great if we can get these applications in our packets. A lot of these questions might have been answered in advance. Just take that extra step to, what else do they need to properly evaluate this? So as things like this come up, it would be great to have that attached. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? I would also share that this is about the 20th year we've received this grant. This has been an ongoing process with our police department for about 2 decades. This is not new to the city. Thank you. Seeing there's no other comment, all those in favor of the resolution? It's unanimous. The vote is 6-0.
Number 2, relative to a short sale for property located at 218 Broad Street.
A motion, please, to bring it forward. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderwoman Philbrick, is there discussion on the resolution?
No, it's Garfield. Garfield, that's.
Alderwoman Philbrick.
Again, I find myself in the position of, and I'll sort of use a phrase from Mr. DeLucia's playbook. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where these things come from. How am I supposed to make an informed decision when this is the first piece of paper I get? I don't know what this means.
Would council like the Community Development Director to answer questions?
I'm sorry?
Our Community Development Director is here tonight to answer any questions that you have.
waiting for an
Please.
explanation.
Hello.
Hello.
So about a month and a half, 2 months ago, we were approached with someone wanting to buy a house that was going into foreclosure that had received community development block grant funds. That's not something we've done before. Typically, houses go into foreclosure and we end up getting no money on a payback. When that request came forward, I consulted with Corporation Counsel. We got an entire package, including appraisals and income. Corporation Counsel might be able to help me out a little bit. We got income, we got everything as far as the foreclosure went and how much we could possibly get in this short sale. The reason it's before the council tonight is because if this doesn't go on a short sale, what will happen is it will be foreclosed on, I think, in the next couple of weeks. Once it's foreclosed on, we'll get nothing back because of the amount of liens that are on the property. So instead of doing that, what we're trying to do is at least recoup some of the money that was put in from the Community Development Office. When that money comes back in, we can then put it back out into the community. That's the reason for the short sale. We've never done it before that I'm aware of, so this is something new.
Can you, if I may, identify which property this is?
I'm sorry?
Where is this property?
218 Broad Street.
Which building is it?
I don't know.
It's between Grove and the top of Grove Street and Lake Street, near the end of Broad Street as it intersects with Boswell Avenue.
So it ends up being local decision and local control. So we can either do a short sale or let it go to foreclosure.
And if I might add, the city is not in first position. It's
Okay.
assumed that through the foreclosure effort, any and all assets that could be realized from this will be gone before
Correct.
anything might be considered for the city.
Right, we wouldn't be bringing it forward to the council if there was a lot of equity in the property and we thought we would get paid back. Where we sit relative to the debt means that once it goes into foreclosure, we would not recoup any of the funding. That's why we're coming forward with a foreclosure request, a short
Short
sale
sale.
request.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any further questions? Thank you very much. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution? Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Number 3, relative to an enlisted agreement with Allen and Associates Realtor for 8 Garfield Avenue.
Motion, please, to bring it forward. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderwoman Philbrick, is there discussion? Yes, Alderman Browning?
I've actually walked through this property. It is a hellhole. I talked to Mel Weiss, who cleaned it out. The basement is shot. The squirrels have created holes in the roof. There is a mold problem in it. I have begged my fellow aldermen on the Public Works Committee to allocate the funds to tear it down, but they want to put it on the market. I will be voting against it. We do have demolition funds, not a lot, but this building is just, words fail me. Maybe we'll have to, this is actually the second time this building has gone through the ringer. Back in the early 90s, the city of Norwich foreclosed on it, I believe. It was later obtained by a organization which was religiously based. I assume it was a 501c3 nonprofit. And then they didn't take care of the building, and now it's ours again. I would like to see us end it with this building. I may get outvoted, but I've at least put my reservations on the record.
Thank you, sir. Is there further comment? Yes, Alderwoman Gould?
While 8 Garfield Avenue may not be in the most pristine condition, we did spend money to clean it out, and it costs us nothing to list it with a real estate agent to see if there's someone who can go in and rehabilitate this home. It may not happen, it may happen, but Again, it costs us nothing to try to sell this piece of property and get it back on our tax rolls. So before we try to find the money to demo the building, let's see if we can find someone out there who would like to rehabilitate the building. Allen and Associates has been very successful in selling our properties, and while this one may be a little bit more challenging than another, we have nothing to lose by trying to sell it.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Browning.
Well, we do have something to lose. We could have someone come in, buy it, and never do the necessary repairs, and it just sits there for the foreseeable future. The additional thing is, if we were going to demo the building, we would have had it cleaned out anyway, because to demo the building, people would have had to walk around inside it. So once again, I think people know where I stand on this building.
Thank you again. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the resolution? Opposed? The motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
Relative to an enlisted agreement with Allen and Associate Realtors for 48 Hinckley Street.
Thank you. Is a motion, please, to bring it forward, the resolution? Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderwoman Philbrick, is there discussion? Yes, Alderman Browning.
This building's in decent shape, but I understand there's a title problem, so I'd like our corporation counsel to explain it for us what exactly the title problem is. If there is no title problem, you could at least clear up my misapprehension on this.
Yeah, I'm not aware that there's a title problem in this. The city acquired it by a tax foreclosure, tax collector's sale, but I'm unaware of any specific at this time. I can do some quick research on it. I mean, if there is a title problem, there's no reason to list it with the broker.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous, 6-0.
Number 5, relative to a listed agreement with Allen and Associates Realtor for 87 Fifth Street.
Motion, please, to bring Resolution 5 forward. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second, please? Alderwoman Philbrick, is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution? It's unanimous. The vote is 6-0.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Before we go into executive session, I would like an opportunity to speak either under suspension of the rules or as a, what do you call it, moment of personal privilege.
Do we need suspension?
If there's no objection.
There's no objection. The floor is yours.
I'm not sure you'll say that when I'm done. As I said, this is going to be a very emotional evening for me. Those of you who like me will understand. Those of you who don't like me will be overjoyed. I, Joanne Philbrick, a duly elected member of the City of Norwich City Council, do hereby relinquish my position effective Wednesday, September 4th, tomorrow. Tonight will be my last night here. I would like to present these flowers to Stacy Gould. Stacy has been my rock. The last 4 years have been very difficult for me. The last year and a half have been extremely difficult. Stacy has been my rock. She has kept me informed. She has kept me included. She's smart. She has her finger on the pulse of the city of Norwich. She's dedicated. She will answer your questions. I support Stacy 100%. As I said, the last year and a half, as many of you know, has been extremely difficult for me. If it were not for the Norwich Fire Department, I would probably be dead. The day of Chief Scan's retirement party, I had a reaction to oxycodone withdrawal, and I was a very sick woman. They, along with Stacy, realized this, called an ambulance, and I was taken to the ER. When I arrived at the ER doctor told me I was going through oxycodone withdrawal, and I should go home and do it by myself, because there were no facilities for people of my age. I did, and I shake now. I have a lot of neurological damage. I do not feel that I am qualified any longer to sit up here. The things that I see, the things that I hear, just add to my stress level. And my doctor has told me it will eventually kill you. And I am not going to die with $92 a month. I'll tell you that. My goal was to stay until the end, but I have been excluded ever since I came out about my drug dependency and the fact that I was not running for re-election. I have been ostracized from the community. People no longer speak to me. People avoid me like the plague. And this is the part where it's going to get really emotional for me. I've already thanked Stacy. I want to thank Mike. All those weeks when I was in the rehab, Mike would bring me coffee. Because if you've ever been in a rehab facility, their food and their coffee sucks. Mike would visit me. Chief Scan would visit me. Even Jake would visit me. I will never be the same. You know I'm a sharer, and I feel that communication and knowledge is power. Now, at 76, I've been diagnosed as being permanently disabled. I suffer from PTSD, major depressive disorder, compact pain syndrome. I will never be the same. And this is all because of an injury, not an accident, an injury that I would like to thank Mr. Browning for giving me the name of an attorney, a medical malpractice attorney. And we're starting depositions tomorrow, Sam, so I'm excited.
Good luck.
Thank you. But this has been extremely difficult for me. I know a lot of you really don't care. You look at me as a crabby old bitchy lady who never says anything positive. But there are people in the community that I love. And there are people in the community that I really don't care for. I will tell you that quite frankly. But I cannot. I've had this discussion with Mike. Mike, I don't know how we became friends, Mike. I really don't. I don't remember. I just know that, like Stacy, I can say just about anything to you, and you will give me honest feedback. Stacy's going to be mad at me because I'm doing this, but I have to put myself and my family first. Those of you who work in public safety in the medical profession understand trauma and tragedy. Every day, people die from overdoses. Every day, people die from suicide. I can't tell you how many times in the last year and a half I contemplated both. Please don't judge me. I am not a horrible person. I am a sick person. Mental health is rampant in this country, and people don't understand or care. There's a person sitting in this audience right now who has been very cruel to me. There are people that send me horrible emails. When I was elected 4 years ago, it was one of the happiest days of my life. I was so excited. after spending 10 years coming to this room and trying to be heard, now finally somebody would have to listen to me. I was an elected official. But guess what? Nobody listened. Nobody listened. In the almost 4 years that I have been here, I have asked for 3 things. 3 things. And the only thing that I was given was the handicap spot at the police department. And I thank Chief Daley for that. And when I thanked him, I was told by the Public Works Department that the police had nothing to do with it. It was the Public Works. Bullshit, it wasn't the Public Works. Because Public Works had 15 years to put a handicap spot there, and they didn't. So I know, as I say, that some of you are going to be extremely happy that I'm going. I put my house on the market. I want to leave Norwich. I want to leave Connecticut. There's nothing here for me, and obviously there's nothing here for me for you any longer. Many of you have made it perfectly clear that you don't want me around. I'm an embarrassment. I'm a pain in the ass. I'm outspoken. I'm critical. But you know what? I've been that way all my life. I'm not going to change. If I have something to say, I'm going to say it, and I respect other people. So to those of you who supported me through these years, to those of you who supported me, more importantly, during my illness and my ongoing battle, it's been 1 year. I've been drug-free 1 year. My battle is far from over, far from over. And I don't think it's fair to sit up here and make decisions for the community when my mind is not clear. Those of you know that drugs do a number on your brain. All my wires are screwed up.
I don't think so.
Well, they are. It takes a long time. So I thank those of you who supported me, thank you. Those who don't support me, I'm sorry if I disappointed you. To my council members, I thank you for your support. And the last thing that I will say, I think people were very kind when I was in the nursing home for almost 2 months. I fractured my femur. And those of you who don't know, the femur is the biggest bone in your body, and it takes a tremendous amount of force to break your femur. And consequently, that's why there's a whole nother story that I'm sure will eventually come out in the newspaper, because there will be a rather large lawsuit. But people were very kind. But I think that the biggest surprise to me, the biggest shocker when I was in the nursing home was, and this will add a little levity to the seriousness of this, the florist brought in a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Now, I had received flowers from UGP and from the city and different ones, but this was a bouquet of flowers from the Yantic Volunteer Fire Department. Now, we all know that Yantic and I do not see eye to eye on much of anything. So for them to do that, to me, was special. And the second day, or the next day, I received an equally beautiful bouquet from Taftville, who I also have had a rather contentious relationship. So I will ask you to pass this down to Betsy. You have to accept it. All right, she's not good. And I thank you, and I hope that you understand this is not an easy job. This is a horrible job, because you can't please all the people all the time. You have to do what you think is best for the majority of the people, and what you feel in your heart is best. Not in your heart even, because your heart should be your mind with it. So I thank you. This was a very difficult decision for me to make, and I think the thing that I will miss the most is my relationship with Norwich Fire Department. From the day I arrived at this city, Kyle Seitz welcomed me into the station 14 years ago, and I feel safe there. I go there from time to time, and to this day, 14 years later, Kyle, big, tall Kyle, remembers the name of my now 13-year-old grandson. So I'm impressed. I thank you all. And if you ever want to ask me any questions, if you have any comments, I'd be happy to talk. I think the last one was my neighbor, who is a lady that comes. She's a Democrat. She comes quite often with a particular lady. She sent me an email last week and said, why don't you get the hell out of town? Nobody here likes you. Why don't you go? Why don't you just go? So I'm going, not because of her, because she's ignorant. She's ignorant. But I have feelings. I am a person. I bleed. I cry. But this is not worth it for me any longer. So I thank you. We'll go to executive session. Stacy, I hope that you will always be my friend. Of course, Joanne. Thank you. Betsy, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. My team and I enjoy your company. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I want you to know I personally will miss you. You've probably been the strongest voice for all taxpayers in this city the last 4 years. But I do understand, knowing what you've been through. But I think the voters will miss you even more in the future. And I want to personally thank you for your service.
Thank you. And thank you for your support, because there have been times, Peter, when you and I did not see eye to eye.
Doesn't change how I feel for you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Gould.
I hereby move pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-200, subsection 6, that the members of the Norwich City Council go into executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy and negotiation with respect to pending claims or litigation. Finance Director and Acting City Manager Josh Pothier, Corporate Counsel Michael E. Driscoll, and Attorney Thomas Girardi shall be asked to participate during all or portions of this executive session at the request of the City Council.
Is there a motion? The second, please. Alderwoman DeLucia. All those in favor? It's unanimous.